Good morning, one and all. It's match day. Figured kick-off's at about 6 o'clock this evening, something like that. So that's 6 o'clock UK time. So that'd be what, about midnight Irish time, Tommy?
1 a.m. Gonzo.
Yeah.
1 a.m. Gonzo time. So I'll be burning the midnight oil.
Of course you will.
So don't let me know what happened.
Absolutely. I'm not sure how the time zone and or the space-time continuum works, but yeah, you're right.
We've spoken previously about your issues with linear time.
We will know. I said to the kids actually the other day, I said they were watching this map of where Father Christmas is in the world, and they were saying, so is it already been Christmas in Australia? I said, yes, it's been Christmas in Australia. I said, in fact, it's New Year in Australia, and America hasn't had Christmas yet. It's still Thanksgiving. One of them bought it. Anyway, but I still don't have a full understanding. Anyway, one thing I do know about time is we saw a little bit of an old-fashioned performance from West Ham, I think. And I think it's probably fair to say that Moyes has admitted his mistake. Moyes has admitted that he got it wrong. I went on a rant on the review saying that journalists don't ask the questions that I want to ask. Why aren't we allowed in the Zoom call? And apparently a journalist did say, "Oi, Moisey, why did you not play any attacking players?" And he answered it and he said, "Yeah, I got that wrong." Without the full match review, Tommy, what did you make of that?
Well, to address his comments first and foremost, I was glad that the proper questions were actually being asked, because, as you say, sometimes they get completely glossed over. It's a completely benign, uninteresting post-match interview, which tells us nothing about anything and doesn't address anything we actually would like to know. But thankfully, this time, they did press him a little bit. I'm not sure why this time. I think probably because it was just so blatantly obvious to everyone that this was an incredibly negative lineup, incredibly defensive, and unnecessarily so. I suspect he wouldn't have faced that kind of line of questioning if we'd been away to Liverpool, away to City. People probably would have said, well, okay, you're trying to shut up shop, keep it tight, not let them, get 2-3 goals up on you before you know what's happened, and hope to kind of hit them on the break. And if it ends up as a 0-0, you take your point. But in this game, it made no sense to line up that way. It made no sense to anyone. I mean, look, I saw your show with Gio when the lineups come out, and we were all feeling the same way immediately upon seeing the team sheet. That was just baffled. So nobody understood it an hour before the game. Nobody understood it during the game, and we all needed answers after the game. I mean, even Gary Neville during the commentary was talking like he was completely baffled, wondering why we're setting up at home to Brighton, who are struggling, as if we're playing Real Madrid. And he used Real Madrid as the example. So it was just a bizarre decision. And the major thing that worries me, Gonzo, if I'm honest, is that while he admitted in the post-match interview when he was pressed on this that he had made a mistake, I'm concerned that it took hindsight for him to know that.
Sure.
When I think probably the entire fan base could see ahead of time, had the foresight to say, well, this isn't right. What are you doing? Why are we setting up like this at home to Brighton? It's way too negative. It's way too defensive. Why aren't we being more positive, more attacking? So it worries me that he needed to learn a lesson like that. I mean, I don't think hindsight should be required here.
Well, I think... No, you're right. Hindsight shouldn't be required there. It should have been glaringly obvious to him, if not to his coaching staff, and you would hope that somebody would have pointed it out. A couple of people have suggested in the chat that, the comments on yesterday's video, that he might have been doing it to send a message to Sullivan that he needs more players. Now, I can't imagine that's the case. I think it's a fair theory, but I don't think he would play Russian roulette with his own job to that extent. I think sometimes what they say, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And I think Moyes, and this is probably more frightening, thought that was the best team to put out against it. I think Gio made a really good point where Gio said that maybe, because I said there weren't enough attacking players on the pitch, Gio said, well, maybe Moyes might argue that Noble was an attacking player. That worries me even more that he would think that, and that's what he would do. But the other one that gets that's been suggested is that he was doing it because he'd come off the back of a sort of thumping off of Chelsea. Now, I don't think it was, the scoreline looked quite unflattering, let's say, the scoreline against Chelsea, but I don't feel the performance was a thumping. Certainly, I thought we were the better team for a large portion of that game. But it was a case of, hold on, we shipped 3 goals. He's going to revert to type and try and keep it clean at the back. Well, you know what? It didn't work. And this stuff doesn't always work when you play like this, because I'll give you an example. When Jose Mourinho, when he first started at Chelsea in his first stint, I remember people asking him about Drogba and about Iron Robin. And he said, there were 2 separate interviews, but he said the same thing about both. And he didn't praise their goal scoring or the sort of things you might expect him to say about an attacking player. He said, yeah, they're really important to the team because they give the defence a rest. And that sounds like simple stuff, doesn't it? But it's not just about some of these attacking players, a fancy dad or this, that, and the other. Sometimes they just carry the ball up into the opposition half. They spend a bit of time in the opposition half. They might not always conjure an attack or a shot, but they provide an attacking threat. And by providing an attacking threat, they relieve the pressure. They stop the opposition from attacking us. It's the old cliche, attack is the best form of defence. I'm not sure it is. I'm pretty sure defence is the best form of defence, but attacking does help you, does stop people from attacking you because they have to defend for a bit. So I just looked at that. I thought, you've got that all wrong. You haven't given them anything to think about. With that in mind, thought Lanzini and Yarmolenko came on, but I think it's now time for Lanzini. I don't just mean in the next match. I was a massive fan of Lanzini. He got his injury. He was about to go to the World Cup. He actually got the injury on World Cup training duty. Messi was desperate. Messi was telling the coach at the time, I want this guy in the team with me. I thought when Liverpool was selling Coutinho, I thought Lanzini was a viable alternative for him to replace, because I thought they were similar type players. That's the highest steam. I think Lanzini at his best point in West Ham was a £35 million player. I think it was all up there. I think his body has healed completely. And I think he lost confidence and he was pulling out of challenges. Now I think he's there. I don't know if you saw the bit where he tried to flick it over the geezer's head and shoot.
Yeah.
That's a player with confidence. All right, his technique slightly let him down there, but we saw with the goal against Tottenham, his technique is still sound. But that was an indulgent, wonderful a piece of flair that he tried to execute there. That shows he's back. That shows he's back mentally. We don't have too many players that can be worth £35 million a day. Even the players that we spend £35 million on ain't worth £35 million, right? It's certainly not now. Anyway, I feel that now is the time. Much gets said about building a team around this player or that player or this player. I think now's the time to actually build something around Manuel Lanzini and actually make him the creative hub of the team, basically.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that, to be honest. It's very clear now. He does appear to be the old Lanzini now, the one that we remember, who's got just a huge amount of quality, really good feet, good passer, and causes real problems for opposition defences. And when we saw it again against Brighton, he was so bright when he came on. And you could see even the Brighton players, when he got the ball, they don't rush into him. They don't want to come flying in and close him down and get in his face because they're afraid he's just going to skip past them.
Yeah.
So they sit off a couple of yards, and it gives him just a little bit of time, a little bit of space where he can make something happen. And you want players who worry opposition defenders like that. It makes them not want to go in and press. You know, because that's when you get those few seconds on the ball like Lanzini was getting, where he can make a good decision, where he can shift the ball, get a shot in. And you know, that's hugely beneficial for us. I mean, again, I don't want to hark on too much on Noble, but the decision to start Noble ahead of him is mind-boggling. I mean, it just seemed a complete no-brainer that Lanzini would play in the number 10 role against Brighton. And had he done that, even with that one change, as much as we didn't like the lineup, even if that one single change had happened from the beginning, we may well be talking about a very different game. You know, having a player on there, like you were talking about just a moment ago, about this kind of the pressure release valve kind of player, right? Where you can pop the ball out to them and they can turn and they can carry the ball. Lanzini is that player. You know, he'll hover outside, you know, maybe 20 yards outside our box. We win the ball, pop it out to him. He can turn and go, or he can play a clever little pass out wide and then go to get a return ball. Very clever, technical player. And we need him in the team now. We have to have him, especially when we're not exactly blessed with players like that. So I think probably technically Lanzini is our best player. I don't think there's much doubt about that. When it comes to technical ability, particularly in the forward line, Lanzini is the guy right now. And like I say, his form looks like it's back. He has to start. Moyes made a huge mistake. I genuinely think we may well have beaten Brighton had Lanzini played 90 minutes on Sunday.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Just to pick
see,
up on something,
yeah.
sorry, just because I know people will write it in the chat underneath. You know, there's people will say that Benrahma is our most technical and our best player, and I know you will not disagree with that, but I just want to sort of just preempt what's going to be said. Benrahma's played a handful of games. Should he have played more? Yes. Will he? It's almost not worth discussing him at the moment because I don't feel he's going to feature. So actually, in terms of players that are actually going to play, Lanzini is the best technically. And let's be fair, Lanzini, I don't know how many games Lanzini's played for West Ham, but he's played between 50 and 100 games for West Ham, right? So we actually talk about him as our player. The Benrahma one is less certain. Sorry to interrupt. What were you going to say, mate?
No, that's a fair point. I mean, I know obviously we're all very keen to see more of Benrahma, and of course he's very, very technically gifted, and hopefully we'll see a bit more of that very soon. And then maybe down the line, you know, by the end of the season, I'll be saying actually Benrahma is technically better than Lanzini. But so it wasn't a slight on Benrahma.
No. But I preempt that some might think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But right now, you would also have to say, because we know Lanzini, right? He's been around long enough. We know what he can do. Right now, you would have to feel that he is probably in attack. He's our most impactful player. He has the ability to open teams up, to create chances, and to score goals more so than any other attacking player. Until we see more of Benrahma.
Yeah.
But so Lanzini just has to be the number 10 going forward. I mean, look, as much as I love Noble, he's Mr. West Ham and all that, but he simply can't do it. He just can't do it anymore. And if Moyes doesn't know that now after these last two games, you know, he never will.
Well,
you know, I mean,
there's a bit of... Sorry.
So, I mean, I'll be traumatized, frankly, if I see him on the team sheet later this evening. He cannot start for West Ham. He just can't. And it's not his fault, but he's not a number 10. Lanzini has to be in.
Well, that'd be 3 games in a week anyway that Noble would... If that cannot happen anyway. Even 2 years ago, he couldn't play at that sort of regularity and intensity there on that. I mean, funny enough, again, I've read all the comments. I've just not had the time over the last 2 or 3 days because, you know, because we're all family at home and everything, to reply to all of them. But there was somebody in the comments said today on the video, all the hate towards Noble. Now, we had a chat before we pressed start to record video about social media, and I'm not on there. I'm just not reading timelines and stuff like that at the moment. I'm popping on there to read the odd, you know, direct message and this, that, and the other, but I'm just not on social media at all at the moment. And quite frankly, all the Hammers chat and all the great comments and all the interactions that we get, we do live shows, keep me busy with and more than in touch with West Ham anyway. But somebody said about all the hate towards Noble. Now, I've not seen hate towards Noble, but I haven't been on social media, so I'll take that. What I have seen, though, and this is why I don't think there's been hate, is a guilt towards Noble, is a reticence, a reluctance to say too much because of the respect we have for him. It's said through gritted teeth. People don't want to say drop Noble from the team. People want the manager to have dealt with that so we don't have to say it. Fans want someone else to have dealt with a situation because Mark Noble doesn't deserve to be slagged off. And I find people are reluctant to. I don't see people going in terms of a comment. People aren't going in 2-footed on Mark Noble. People are almost dancing around the subject and saying they'd rather not see him in. But it is a subject that can't really be ignored. And I do feel, you might have heard me say, I think Moyes is putting him and us in an awkward position by including him that much. It's not a great comparison, but Kevin Nolan had, I think it was at West Ham for 4 years, quite possibly. I think he had 3 really good years, the best finisher at the football club and captain. The last year, he shouldn't have been in the team. And what it did was it soured our relationship with him, which he should have been remembered well. Now he's come back as a coach, and I don't think there is ill feeling towards Kevin Nolan, but it's not the right thing to do. It's the wrong thing to do. And I do think David Moyes needs to deal with that. In terms of the technical ability, you did look at that bench and you looked at Yarmolenko, and said it in the preview, in the build-up show. You looked at Yarmolenko, you looked at Lanzini, you looked at Benrahma. I think, well, those are the 3 people that are going to create or score a goal. What's going on here? The weird thing is, you look at Brighton, you look at Southampton, you look at Everton, and now we find out that because of the match getting cancelled, Everton have got some additional rest as well because they've not played because Man City have got some players that have got COVID. Actually, Brighton was the winnable game. And he's got this wrong before, by the way. And I've got to say, I thought that was the most annoyed, even though it was a draw, it was the most annoyed I'd been since they threw the cup against Everton, funny enough, earlier on this season. So actually, this was the one for the 3. You get 3 points now, and you pick up a point against Southampton and Everton, or whatever, or a point against each, then that's good. Now, almost look at you got to beat either Southampton or Everton.
Yeah, it's the old bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, Gonzo. And yeah, you're completely right. I mean, you don't turn your nose up at 3 points when they're available, especially when you're at home against a team in 17th who are struggling, haven't won a game in the last 5. You can't be thinking about, we have a game on Tuesday, so and I did wonder actually about the lineup because it was so baffling on Sunday. I wondered was Moyes thinking, okay, Brighton aren't great, maybe I can go with this and get away with it. Maybe I can put this team out and still beat Brighton, and then I can bring in fresh legs for the tougher game away to Southampton on Tuesday. Maybe it was just a big gamble on his part, where he hoped they could still go out and beat a relatively poor side. No, I think that was foolish if that's where his thinking was. But perhaps he thought along those lines. But you can't do that in the Premier League. You won't get away with it. We've seen it time and again. How often have we seen Gonzo in the past? It's usually the reverse, right? Where we're playing maybe one of the big teams who are genuinely better than us. Let's say we're playing Man City. Manager decides, you know what, away at Man City, we're probably going to get beaten no matter what I do. Going to rest a few lads because we've got this easier game coming up midweek. And then you end up losing both anyway. So it just doesn't work. Look, put the team out that you believe can win those 3 points, and then worry about the next game afterward. You can't look a gift horse in the mouth like that. You can't take gambles like that. And if that's what he did, it was a huge error. And just can I touch on the Noble hate thing?
Yeah, please tell me if I've missed stuff.
No, because the terms here are actually, words mean something. Like terms are important, right? Yeah. Hate is getting on Twitter saying Mark Noble's a wanker, Mark Noble's an arsehole, F Mark Noble, and tweeting at him or whatever, you're a wanker or whatever. That's hate. Saying, as I've been saying, Mark Noble can no longer play 90 minutes in the number 10 role. He doesn't have the legs for it anymore. He's too slow. He can't get around the pitch the way we need a number 10 to, and the game kind of passes him by. That's not hate. That's a legitimate footballing opinion about a player's footballing ability. You're free to disagree. You're free to come back at me and say, no, I actually think he's still a really good player and he can play the role no problem and play well at number 10 for us. That's fine. Those are just footballing opinions. It's not hate. So people get a bit defensive about Mark Noble for understandable reasons. But I think, don't charge people with hating on people when they're not hating on people. We all love Mark. I love Mark despite what I just said about what he can bring to us on the pitch now. So terms are important. It's not hate. It's just a legitimate footballing opinion. There's a big difference between the two.
I'll tell you, struck a chord with me. If I could reach across the Irish Sea and shake your freshly sanitised hands, Tommy, I'd certainly do so. I could not agree more. I totally agree. I think words are important. I think you're accountable for your words, but I do absolutely believe what you say, and I say this all the time in the chat. Disagree with people by all means. Not that you have to police our chat. We've got a good bunch of subscribers here, but don't call people names and disagree with them. Just disagree with them. Say I always use left back. Say I don't like this player. You're right. Yeah, I don't agree with you. I like this player at left back. And then you turn around and say, no, I like this player at left back for that reason. You're absolutely right. It is not hateful in any way, and too much, I think, these days of what is valid comment is dressed up as hate just because somebody might disagree with what you're saying. It sort of does shut down conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, for example,
context,
Yeah, for example, like I love Fornells. I think he's a really good player.
We call him a fornicator, if you wouldn't mind.
Excuse me, sorry.
Very hateful of you, Tommy.
El Fornicador, was it? Or
yeah, Spanish. Yeah,
the fornicator, love him. I think he brings a lot to the team. I have a lot of time for him, but I felt he needed to be taken out of the team because it looked like he was quite knackered to me, and I felt like he needed some games off, so I felt he should be dropped from the team. It's not because I hate the guy. I love him. It's just a footballing opinion. If you disagree, fine, but don't call me a hater for it, for crying out loud.
Well, I always feel the need to quantify that. I find myself saying it more regularly because someone will say, it's like we were discussing before, right? Oh, are you in or out? You've got to be in or out on something. You can't be nuanced. What did you call it? Quote mining.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So, I can do I could do a 10-minute video on David Moyes and how he's done well and post lockdown and his training regime and bringing in the staff and he recruiting the good players. Doing 10 minutes praising Moyes, and at some point I can then turn around and say, but he needs to get this done. He needs to get this sorted because he needs to improve. And someone will turn around and say, so you're Moyes out. What? Well, have you not paid any attention? And everyone seems to want to, hang a word or hang a quote on you. And I always find myself having to quantify, even now, something as simple as what you suggest. Even just saying, that person needs a rest. I then quantify it by saying, I'm not saying he should be sold. I find myself doing that more often because someone will come along and say, and I don't mean the main, by the way. I'm telling you, 99% of people that watch this channel are, they get it. They really do. You'll see it by the way they interact when we do some more of our silly stuff.
It's amazing, to some people that everything is like this binary proposition.
Yes.
Where you either love this person and want them there, or you hate this person and you want them gone. It's like, no, it's not. It's not that simple. It's a little more complex than that,
It is, yeah, absolutely, yeah. If only. So, just before we wrap up, today's game later on today, changes to the team. You confident? What do you think is going to happen?
Okay, as for confident, can't say that I am, in all honesty. Apart from ourselves, I mean, Southampton are a really good side. They play a really nice brand of football as well. They've got some quality players. Now, I understand there'll be a weakened Southampton side. We don't know how much. Certain players like Danny Ings, we're told, are a doubt. So we don't really know if we're going to be facing them or not. But potentially a somewhat weakened Southampton side, which will help a bit. But they're still a very, very good side. And it's kind of hard to be confident when we don't quite know what Moyes is going to do. There was a time not so long ago we could basically say, look, this is going to be the team. Because we know who's fit. We know what players he likes. We know the formation. We could predict, basically, more or less what the 11 was going to be. There might be one change. It's a little more difficult to do that now after the other day because we just don't know who was going to start or who's going to leave on the bench. I hope it's quite a different team. The one we saw on Sunday that takes the field this evening. But it's hard to say. So I'm not particularly confident. I hope Moyes did learn, as he says he did, that was too negative. And I hope he'll bring more attacking into the team. My suspicion, Gonzo, if I'm honest, is that he'll make one change and that he'll put Lanzini in from the start ahead of Noble. I'm worried that will be the only thing he'll do. I won't be surprised if he does that. I think away against a good Southampton side, he'll probably stick with wing backs. So we'll probably see much the same defensive shape and personnel. And I suspect it'll just be Lanzini in for Noble and with Bowen and Haller. So I'm a bit worried that's all he'll do, because I'm not sure. While Lanzini certainly improves things, don't know if that'll be enough. I think we'll still end up being incredibly defensive in that game. So I'm not particularly confident. And if I'm completely honest, I think Southampton will win this game.
No, well, that is a prediction, and that's not being confident at all. Tommy, thank you very much for joining us once again. I'll get it wrapped up. We've done 26 minutes. Thanks again, mate. As always, some true words spoken there, my friend. Certainly. Just to finish up, in terms of David Moyes and what you said there, you said David Moyes made a gamble against Brighton. I do think he made a gamble. I think in many respects, the least of the failures of that gamble, the least of the losses, should we say, was actually the points, because it wasn't a complete failure. He gambled, and he did get a point. What he's gambled on and where he really has lost is he's lost some favour for the fans with Mark Noble, and he's lost some favour with the fans with himself. And from that point of view, I think the gamble failed, because his stock was high, and now I think a few of the fans are either suspicious or a little bit worried about what he's going to do next. But I do believe we are capable of beating Southampton. I don't think we've gone from a team that was capable of beating anybody, which we were, to being absolutely useless. That being said, I think this will be my finishing comment. I'm using new software here, so I don't know if when I say my finishing comment, it's meant to go, I'm going to say it and then press the button and that's it. It's meant to be, that's it. But then it will sort of tick on for another 5 seconds. It loses its potency then, Tommy. So I'm going to say it and hope that this button ends the
You're just going to say it and run. Okay.
So I'm going to be looking and waiting with bated breath to see if that team sheet at the starting line includes the name of Mikel Antonio instead of Sebastian Haller. It didn't.